Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to my presentation. Today I'll be presenting our paper, Combating Robocalls with Phone Virtual Assistant Mediated Interaction. In this paper, I worked with my collaborator Krishanu Sarker, my co-advisor Roberto Perdisci, my advisor Mustaque, Ahamad, and my co-collaborator Diyi. Have you ever received a robocall? Most likely yes. I, in fact, received a scam call while I was on my way to this conference from someone claiming to be from US Customs and Border Protection. FCC reports that there are around 4 billion robocalls placed each month in the United States. Now, there are some call blocking applications available in the market, like Truecaller, Umail, but how well do they work? So it's definite that the phone voice channel isn't effectively protected. Now, most of these call blocking applications rely on blocklists, and blocklists are only found to be partially effective by previous work. And the effectiveness of blocklists further degrades with caller ID spoofing. Now, to stop caller ID spoofing, FCC had mandated that all large carriers implement Shake and Stir, which is a caller ID authentication protocol, by June 2021. However, we're still getting robocalls, right? So stir shaken is not a cure-all solution. Now, since the metadata related to a call is not 100% effective against stopping these robocalls or spam calls, how about we use call content, similar to how email content is used to filter out email spam? Now, the challenge here is that call content isn't readily available. And we only know what a call is about once we pick that up. And by that point, the victim is already exposed to the robocall content. Now, to screen call content, there are current methods in the market, which is Google's call screen, where Google Assistant screens your calls, and Google claims that it uses call content to stop robocalls. However, we conducted an experiment where we used 200 benign phone numbers from Yellow Pages. We spoofed those numbers and made calls to Google Assistant and played robocall content, and none of those were blocked. On the contrary, we used 200 dirty phone numbers and spoofed those to make robocalls, and most of those were blocked. So our experiment analysis showed that in practice, Google's call screen still uses or heavily relies on caller ID to stop robocalls. Now, to come up with a better solution, we introduced a RoboHalt, which is a smart interactive virtual assistant, which picks up calls on your behalf, makes a conversation with the caller. Based on the conversation, decide whether it's a robocaller or a human caller. And we use a combination of NLP and audio-based models to make that decision. And in our result sections, which I'll talk about later, we show that RoboHalt is effective against mass robocallers, evasive, and targeted robocallers. And it does all of these while preserving user experience. On the left-hand side, you'll see a simplified version of RoboHalt's workflow. So with each incoming call, RoboHalt picks up the call, greets the caller, asks a question, and based on the response, it labels that response from the caller as an appropriate response to that question or not. And then decides using sequential probability ratio test to determine whether enough questions has been asked to make a decision. If not, it goes back and asks another question. If enough questions has been asked, and if it is a robocall, the call is redirected to voicemail. If it's a human caller, the phone rings with the context of the call, which is the purpose of the call. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see a list of the question categories that RoboHalt uses. All of these questions were designed to be easy and natural for a human caller to respond to during a phone call. However, the responses are specific enough that they do not typically appear in robocall messages. And in each of those categories, you'll see an example of a question that RoboHalt chooses from. Questions like, can you hold for a moment? Can you please repeat that? What the call is about, and so on and so forth. This is the system architecture of RoboHalt. Now, with each incoming call, calls from all safe-listed callers are going to be forwarded directly to the user. Calls from all blocklisted caller is going to be directly blocked. Now, all calls from unknown callers are going to be passed to the robocall detector, where robocall sits. A robocall detector consists of a controller and multiple modules. The controller determines which questions to ask at each turn and invokes a corresponding module to that. It also determines the order frequency of questions. An example of a module that is used is relevance detector. Relevance detector is responsible for determining whether the caller has presented with an appropriate answer for the relevance questions, like how are you doing today? Now, to train such a model, we used Fisher's English transcript dataset, which is a large dataset consisting of human callers talking to each other over the phone over a given topic. And we further fine-tuned that base model with robocall responses and responses to the questions that we had. Another example is the repetition detector. The repetition detector determines whether when robocall asks, can you repeat yourself, whether the caller has provided a semantically similar response. Now, to build such a model, a large data set consisting of human responses and their repetitions, semantic repetitions, is required. And since no such large data set is publicly available, we take advantage of Lenny recordings. So Lenny recordings, Lenny is a bot which engages with human telemarketers and asks them multiple times to repeat themselves. So we use transcripts from those recordings to get actual human responses and their repetitions. An audio-based module is the amplitude detector, which determines whether when RoboHalt asks a caller, can you please speak up, whether they have actually spoken up or not. To evaluate the usability of our system, we conducted a user study with 40 users, where each user interacted with the system, interacted with the prototype of the system that we built, and made calls. At the end of the study, they were asked to provide these questions related to their experience. And our survey results show that most of the users felt that the conversation with RoboHalt felt natural, the time that they spent interacting with RoboHalt was acceptable, and that they would like to use such a system frequently in real life. Now, in our user study, we had 40 users made 160 calls. And 13, which is a little over than 8%, were redirected to voicemail, meaning that these were mislabeled. Now, upon further analysis, we found that in 10 of those 13 calls, the users didn't answer all the questions. And this is understandable because it was the first time the users were interacting with such a system, so they weren't familiar with such a system and they weren't answering to all the questions. Since we had them made 4 calls, we found out that by the 3rd and 4th time that they were interacting with RoboHalt, they were answering all the questions. And by that time, our false positive rates reduced to 5%, which shows that false positive rates reduce further as users get more familiar with the system. Now, to evaluate how effective RoboHalt is against robocallers, we conducted a security analysis. We had multiple red team members who were attacking the system. The first kind of attack the red team members made were a mass robocall attack, which is what we see nowadays in real life, where robocalls play a mass robocall recording to a huge number of people. And we found out that RoboHalt was able to block 95% of those mass robocall, and our red team members could not find any pattern that could be exploited by mass robocallers. The second type of attack red team members made was evasive robocallers. Now, we call it evasive because in this type of attack, the attackers are aware of RoboHalt's existence. So these attacks are not seen currently in real life because in real life RoboHalt is not deployed. But when it is deployed and robocallers are actually aware of the system, what are the ways that they can evade it? So during these type of attacks, the red team members interacted with the system to learn information about the questions, their order, their frequency, things like that. Upon extracting those information, they created a pre-recorded response with a string of appropriate response for a possible interaction with RoboHalt, and made calls to RoboHalt to make those evasive robocalls, and found out that 84% of the evasive robocalls were blocked. And third type of attack the red team members made is the AI-equipped robocallers, which is outside of our threat model. But still, we wanted to include these type of attacks to see how RoboHalt is effective against AI-equipped robocallers, where they can actually comprehend what the question is and provide a reasonable response. Now, we call this a gray box attack because in this type of attack, the robocallers are aware of RoboHalt's existence. They know what questions categories are, what each component does, and how RoboHalt works as a whole. So they extracted all those information, created responses for those questions. Upon making a call, they transcribed the VA prompts, the virtual assistant prompts, and conducted keyword and phrase matching to find out which question was asked, and used text-to-speech to provide an appropriate response. And found out that they were successful 96% of the time by optimizing this type of attack. Now, although this is outside of our threat model, our red team members found that their success heavily relied on the quality of transcription. So as a countermeasure to such attacks, audio itself from the VA prompts can be perturbed to cause mistranscription. So previous work has been done by researchers where they explore audio perturbation so that the transcription is misclassified as a different target sentence, where it is still correctly perceived by humans, but misclassified by the ASRs. Now, obviously, this work was done in the pre-ChatGPT era, and combating against AI-equipped robocallers, it's outside of our threat model, but we do still talk about what are the defense directions that can be taken in future to stop these type of AI-equipped attackers with audio perturbation. Plus, one other thing to keep in mind is creating such an AI-enabled attacker at a scale is very resource extensive for the robocallers. One other limitation is we do not stop against unwanted human callers as of now. And in future, we look forward to a more interactive chatbot-like virtual assistant, which is more easy and natural flowing in their conversation and not limited to a set of questions. So we already know, and we listened through all the talks here, that robocalls are still very rampant today, with current call blocking techniques only partially effective. Hence, we introduced RoboHalt, which takes advantage of call content, and based on that content, determines whether it's a robocaller or a human. It can stop mass-targeted and evasive non-interactive robocallers, and it does all of these while preserving user experience. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.